Thanks for joining us on this beautiful Tuesday in time for an update in Elko City news with our Elko City Vice Mayor, outgoing Councilwoman Mandy Simons. Mandy, what a pleasure to sit across from you today. Thank you
very much.
Yeah, great to see you. And we'll recap last week's meeting and maybe look over, a few things that might be coming up, I guess, in time for next Tuesday's regular meeting, right?
Yep. Yeah, lots of stuff going on.
Yes. And probably the highlight of the recent council agenda, Mandy, was the audit presentation. It looks like a great, clean audit.
Yeah, it was. It was a clean audit. And I'm not an expert on governmental accounting by any means, and I don't know what's the norm. But sorry about that, but they quite often make comments that compared to other cities, we're doing pretty good. And that's what he said this time. He says, I have a lot of entities that would kill for this kind of report. We're in great, not only was it a clean report, we had all our ducks in a row and all that, but we've really been able to put most of our accounts in a good position. We're not running in the red. We're not, and able to pay the things that we need to pay. It's hard for a lot of cities. They're sometimes not in that position. So we're doing well. I will say that the one thing, really the only thing that I took away from it, the biggest thing is that our landfill fund, we would really like to build it up. It's not scary or anything, but we've really done a good job with the others, putting them in a good position so that we can hopefully do the maintenance on our infrastructure, that we can provide the services we need to provide. But on that one, we did just have to go back and do a little bit of an increase on that. So that should bring itself back up. And that was kind of it. It was really a pretty nice, it was really a pretty nice report. But they obviously have to do those audits on us and make sure that we're being fiscally responsible. And yeah, everything looks great.
Councilwoman Mandy Simons, and talking about the fiscal year presentation during the recent council meeting, those enterprise funds that you talked about, that's really important to know they're self-supporting. The one thing that did stand out is sales tax. Is a bit off,
that's right? It is a bit off. I did forget about that. Yeah. I just didn't put it in my notes, but that is a bit off. And so we're going to continue to watch that. It's a guessing game. You get estimates from the state, and then we try to budget under that to keep ourselves very, very safe. But again, you're kind of looking into the future using a crystal ball. And so we're going to keep a close eye on that, because that's not where they had predicted for sure. And so hopefully that,
off by what, about 10%?
It was not. Yeah, it was not a small thing. And again, we're all just guessing. Mm-hmm. We're all just guessing. And so I get it. And in the past, there's been years where it's come in much higher than expected. And so then you all get excited. And then we have years like this where we're just going to have to watch every penny. And worst comes to worst, maybe some of the things that were approved in this budget, we'll have to scoot back a year. There are measures we can take. But right now, they're just taking it, just kind of taking it under advisement, keeping an eye on it. We'll watch it. Things change overnight sometimes. So we'll just, they did kind of say that's something you need to keep an eye on.
All right. And again, those self-supporting enterprise funds, user fees are what go into those budgets to help generate, as you mentioned, landfill and water and sewer, the golf course, things like that. But sales and use tax funds, what, about 65%?
Yeah, I was going to say 70, but I think you're probably right, 65%, a huge portion of it. So if those are down 10%, then that can really influence a lot. And it affects across the board. But yeah, those enterprise funds are the ones where we really try to keep it more as a user fee, meaning those people who use them more, of course, have to pay more. That seems fair. And so those are some of the funds that we're watching and that we hope, and that's why we actually had to just do an increase on the landfill fund, because, X, Y, and Z, that's how much it costs to run a landfill. And so we just want to make sure that we're not going into the red for that. As much as we want to make it affordable, we also want to make sure that it's not the people who never use the landfill, that are subsidizing it. It's the folks that use it a lot that are paying a little more, and the folks that use it a little are paying less.
Kind of like the water and sewer
Exactly.
services.
All those funds. That's the way we try to keep it. And honestly, that's this whole idea of paying for what you get is why we're making changes to the water meters. It's going to be hard for those of us that have had this flat rate for so long, but the truth is we're being subsidized by everybody else in the community, and that's not really fair. And so that's what we try to do with these funds. We try to use that sales and use tax, where we need to, and then we have to be responsible with those user fees to make sure it covers what it needs to cover. Because if I never leave my house and I never, not leave my house, but if I never, use electricity, then why am I paying for electricity, right? And so, so those are things that we're watching. All those different kinds of funds are things that they looked at and we're pleased with what they saw, but that things that we're going to keep an eye on.
All right. Well, thanks for the update there. Again, keeping an eye on sales and use taxes. No real strong indicators. We spoke with Julie Davis. She was on with Jan last week, Mandy.
Yes, and they're amazing.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, they are. They're amazing. We have some very talented professionals at the helm. Yeah. I don't need to tell you that.
No. Yeah. And thank goodness for them, because it all seems quite convoluted sometimes. I've been doing this for 12 years and still sometimes I'm like, oh, shoot, I thought I had a grasp on that. And then they just threw a wrench in there and I realized, okay, no, that wasn't how it works. I thought for sure that was how it worked. So I'm grateful for those type of people. Jan, who, of course, used to have that job, and then Julie, who does it now. And they have kept us really right where we need to be. So I am grateful for that.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, obviously, Mandy, for the update as we're looking over the most recent council agenda to see what items may have jumped out. The audit, again, was on there. An update in the Shady Elms Mobile Home Park. It's still an arduous process.
It is. And I think it's easy to get frustrated with that, but we have to remember that in the very not very long ago, we have dealt with somebody who made no progress, promises, and we saw no action. So to even have a creeping along action, we are grateful for. And there was not much update in the last meeting, but by the next meeting, I believe that we will have seen some movement on those things. And the weather seems to be holding for now. So the big thing, I think, is getting some of those burnt up trailers out. And that just took, there was a process to do that. So they are scheduled, and we're also looking at the electricity. There were some boxes that were just kind of hanging open and exposed, and so we need to get somebody in there to take care of that before NV Energy will go in. It's just a process. Sometimes there's a legal process to go through. Sometimes it's just lining up with people's schedules. You need somebody to do X, Y, and Z. Well, they've got other people on their schedules, and so it has been a bit of waiting, but there has been progress, right? We do get pictures of pieces that have been cleaned up, and of course there's many pieces left to go, but they are making progress. So I'm excited to see this next meeting, because I think by the next meeting, and even within the week after that, I think there's going to be some heavy lifting, I hope.
Great. Something to look forward to in the new year. And this story really is a testament to the neighborhood, right, Mandy? Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Those neighbors have been very, very helpful. They'll keep us updated. They're there every day. We drive through it. Multiple people of the city drive through it here and there. They'll try to do it once a week or a couple times a week, depending on what's going on. But these people are there all the time, so they can say, oh, yeah, that happened, but then this happened. And we've seen people going in and out, and they're the ones that call the police, so the police understand exactly what's going on over there. So we are grateful for them, and I'm grateful for this company that does seem to be responding. I know as business owners, to put all this money up front in hopes that you recoup it later, that's a bit of a gamble, but they've actually been ponying up to some extent, and so we hope that they can continue to do that, and we are excited for an update next week.
All right. Also on the agenda during Tuesday's meeting, some discussion of supporting Elko Heat Company, which is geothermal, a renewable energy source, right, Mandy?
Yes. I don't know. What item are you on?
Let's
Sorry,
see.
I lost track.
It's easy to do because
here we go.
Yeah,
I
was
see.
jumping
Okay.
around.
Yeah, and it was in the consent agenda, but we wanted to just put out a letter of support from the city. Elko Heat Company, they're wanting to kind of expand their service territory, and so and they apply to the Nevada Public Utilities Commission, and so they asked us to just write a letter for support, and so we agreed to go ahead and do that.
That's pretty cool. So a great energy source, again, something that I know Boys and Girls Clubs would love to tap into for the swimming pool, right?
Yeah, it would be a blessing to them, I think, because pools are pricey.
Yes. Any progress on that or anything to report? I know
No,
it
I
looks
think,
good over there.
Yeah, all I know is that they're just chipping away from it. I haven't heard any big, huge announcements. So
All right.
I assume things are going smoothly.
Still on track for next summer.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
hopefully- okay.
I hope.
I know. Yeah.
We'll all have our fingers crossed. I will say also that we had a presentation from Steve Simpson over at the hospital talking about some of the things that they'd like to do as far as behavioral health. They've really taken that on and are trying to, well, first of all, they've already got done so much, and they opened up the behavioral unit just within the last few weeks. So they've got some facilities to help people that are in dire need, and then we voted to extend $500,000 of the ARPA funds to them for the behavioral health initiative. And so, let me see. So back in February, we committed $500,000 to them to do kind of an inpatient hospitalized behavioral health treatment where they were going to have 16 beds over at the hospital. And some in the community may have gone to either kind of the groundbreaking / wall breaking, or recently where you could go and take a tour of it. And that's on the 3rd floor of the hospital. And because it's kind of up and ready to go, they came and gave an update to us and then went ahead and requested that we disperse go ahead and extend that money to them. And so that was really nice that they are doing that, and they've talked about some of their future plans. They've also talked about how one kind of their next heavy lift, I think, is they're going to try to take on oncology, get some more oncology services here, and that isn't all said and done yet, but that's something that they're working diligently on. And so we're grateful for any health services that we can provide, that they provide to our folks here, so that people aren't having to drive 3 hours and all that kind of thing. So that was really nice. That was a positive kind of report. And we were happy to give that money. I mean, to have 16 beds in this community for those people that just really desperately need it, that's a huge benefit to our community.
Yep. Inpatient behavioral health. That's a first. And it is, of course, pioneered by the Northeastern Nevada Regional Hospital.
Yeah,
Mandy.
yeah,
So
we are
great
grateful
news.
to them.
Yeah. So thanks for the update on that as well. And honestly, I mean, we're sort of like just dancing around this, but this is your last month. I mean, this is it.
True.
I know. It's
True. This is my last month.
And you're probably pretty ready. I mean, by
It's a long
after
time.
12 years.
12 years is a long time.
It is a long time.
Yeah.
A lot of changes. Your kids have grown up in and around
Yeah,
council.
they don't know any different.
Right.
I'm not quite sure they'll know what to do with me on Tuesday nights. So.
What are you doing
I
here?
know.
Yes. So, but again, looking at all these things, I mean, even starting with the pandemic, you have to feel pretty good about the way the city responded in this nonpartisan manner. There was money allocated. It seemed like the city was really poised to make the best of the worst of the situation.
Yeah, and that's really what it was. It was not a situation we wanted to be in. People would come to us and say, well, why are you following this rule and this rule? And it was like, okay, this is where we're at. Like pretending that we're, someplace else. We have to deal with the state. We have to deal with the hands we're given. And how are we going to best do that legally? How can we help our citizens? What's the best we can do to get the city through this financially, to get people through this in the healthiest way possible? And it was hard, and there were no good answers sometimes. Sometimes just about everybody in that meeting left discouraged, including us, because sometimes there just are no amazing answers. But we did get through it, and yeah,
you parented through it as well. You parented through it with school.
Was really cool. I was just talking to somebody the other day talking about the impact that kind of remote schooling had on my kids and other kids and whatever. And I assured them that I had cried much, much more than my children ever did during that time. That was hard. I had a kindergartner there with all his toys 2 feet away, and then we're sitting in front of a computer for 7 hours a day, and he's just going, what in the world? But they're right there. I'd really like to play and about how kind of the lasting effects. And it was hard. It was hard for families, and there are lasting effects. Nobody got out of that completely unscathed, but hopefully lessons learned.
Well, lessons learned, and at the same time, effective leadership, Mandy, because again, nobody could have anticipated what the city would go through, the county, the state, the entire country, and to do that with a level head and a caring heart,
Yeah.
the way you did.
And I do remind people, again, I did not like some of the rules that came down that were happening around the country in our state, but I have to remember that nobody knew what was going on. People will say, well, at first the scientists said this, and then they said that. I said, yeah, I would hope that they learned more and that maybe sometimes it changed what they thought, and people were, given information and trying to make the best decisions they had. And would other people have made different decisions? Sure, probably, but you can't fault people for having something that big and that horrible thrown in their face and then just scrambling. So I did try to remember that through that horrible event, that the school district was trying to do the best they could for these kids, and the state was trying to get people safe even if I didn't agree on their methods, and the city really was trying to get us through that in the best way possible. And so it's hard to cut people slack, but that was just an unprecedented situation.
And I remember talking to you specifically during that time because you and your family have a very strong faith, and that was hard on you because you couldn't even go to church.
Yeah, you can't go to I
church
believe and our church chose to shut down during that time and encouraged to increase our faith at home, and so we were fine. But I truly believe that in the future the government should never have the authority to shut down a church, ever. I believe that churches should have been smart and shut down themselves. That for what was going on, your elderly members, that probably gathering in large numbers was for a while not smart. But that should have been their call, and that was a hard pill to swallow. And again, for us, it was hard because those are your people, and you go and you see them each Sunday, and you. It just can sometimes be the best part of your week. And it was hard, but, there were great videos to watch, and you can sing songs at home, and we made our own little home church, and we have precious memories from that. And, so good and bad for that. But we made it through, and, I really do believe that the government should never, ever be able to tell a church to close its doors. But I also believe that, sometimes you can have great memories and blessings from these hard trials. And that, as far as church comes, for sure, our family will look back on that and think, okay, that was kind of fun. We don't get to reenact violent scripture stories at church, but at home, we're all over it. Yeah. We'll make our paper weapons and go at it or whatever.
And have their pillow fight.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, it worked out. Just one of the many ups and downs during that period. And there's been a lot of things in the last 12 years. It wasn't just that. We had, the new police station. We've been trying to overhaul the liquor laws for downtown. And, oh my goodness, we had, when the dispensaries when that became new law, oh my goodness, I can't even think of all the things. There's just been so many. The airport has had its ups and downs. And so a lot of change and different issues have come up for sure. And
you were a leader or liaison, again, on a lot of these important, forward issues. And I wanted to say too, Mandy, even recently, in the last 3 months or so, I was at council, and the board was grappling with the brothel issue with the baby in the bar and the licensing. And I just wanted to tell you that I felt like that was stressful for you. I felt like you were having a hard, that was just a hard thing. It's a lot of them.
It's a lot of feelings, because if I were creating my own Mandy Landia, there would not be brothels. That's not something that I believe in. But it is here, and we have the rules, and as long as people are following those rules, then that's the route we go. But to have a baby in there, but then you had a mom who was trying to take care of a baby in a place that should never have a child in it. And man, there's just a million sides. Very rarely is there a decision that's as black and white as we make it out to be. My kids will come home and say, well, I heard on the news this and I heard on the news that, and it's like, oh my goodness, but it's such a complex they'll come say, well, what about Israel? What about, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's like you can't have a more complex issue. And sometimes we make these things very black and white. And from the police chief's eyes, this is the law. It was broken. And I get it. And from a mother's eyes, this is my baby and I must take care of it. And so that was hard. But at the end of the day, yeah, we had to say, this is the law and something has to be done. We can't just turn a blind eye to that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to say that over the last 12 years, Mandy, it really has been a pleasure to watch you and to see how you deal with some of these, professional, personal differences, challenges, but at the same time, keeping sight of your faith, what you believe in, what you care most, you put your family first.
Sure. Yeah. I remember one time I read, it was a comment, you read these news articles on, I think it was Elko Daily, and then people leave their little comments, bless their hearts, some of them. But somebody had said, oh, I made this decision because I had to be able to live with myself. I had to be able to sleep at night. And the comment was, we don't care about that. We don't care if you can live with yourself or if you can sleep at night. And I thought, that's how I have to, I don't know how else you can operate. And so there are some tough decisions, and there's some decisions that you never thought you would have to pipe in on. And there's some decisions where you're really not loving it, but this is where you're at. And I think at the end of the day, you just have to say, okay, I have to live with myself. I have to be able to sleep at night. I always tell my kids, they're trying, you can't please everybody. I always tell them you got to make sure yourself, God, and your mom are okay with it. Mason always says, what about their dad? And we said, no, we don't care about their dad. We only care about.
We know where you are in the
exactly,
pecking order.
Exactly. You just go. You can go be the boss somewhere else. But yeah, you kind of just have to be able to live with yourself and make sure you're okay with your decision at the end of the day and do your best. And yeah.
Well, and I love that you have those conversations with your kids, because I know, for John and I, with Olivia and her involvement in city government and council vicariously, the whole thing, and she went on to become a, student body leader. But you have to have those tough conversations sometimes, as you said. I'm glad you're having conversations about Gaza. We have them too. And it's hard.
It is super hard. It is super hard. And the world sometimes seems to be crashing down around, and you feel so bad for them because you just want them to be carefree and enjoy their childhood. But yeah, all this stuff affects them. And so sometimes it's good to get in the thick of it and ask them what they think and what they've heard. And, what would you do in this situation? And how do you think it could be different?
And how will they help us as we heal and go forward in this, especially in this time, Mandy? Mm-hmm. And another important point that I think is that you've been involved in Republican politics in Elko County.
I have been, yeah.
But it doesn't seem as though you're always Republican forward. I mean, maybe it's because the council's nonpartisan.
Well, yeah, and that's probably part of it. So I'm involved in a religion. We actually had one of our leaders gave an amazing talk about this, and lots of people will disagree with me, and that I totally get. You don't have to agree with me, but when they said it, I thought I just needed to hear it. And it's that sometimes your faith won't always align with a particular political party. And that's okay. I can be Republican, and if the Republican Party takes up something that I feel a little bit different on, that's kind of okay, right? It's a huge umbrella. Half of the country isn't going to feel exactly the same on every issue. And I know my father-in-law loves to call me a rhino sometimes. I don't feel exactly the same. Oh, you're just a Republican, Emily. And it's like, no, I think that we can all be Republican, or we can all be Democrat, or we can all be whatever. And it doesn't mean we're all going to have the exact same views on things. So yeah, there are times where maybe the Republican congressional delegates will do something, and I'll think, no, you know what? I kind of feel differently on that, and that's okay. And it took me a long time to get there because I would just feel bad. This is what I believe in. I'm a Republican, and this is what I believe in. And there are still lots of people that feel that way. And again, that's great. If that's you, that's great. But for me, I just thought I need to give myself permission to say, I have other beliefs that maybe don't mesh quite with that. And so, I don't agree 100%. And the mayor said something, Reese Keener said something a long time ago that really stuck with me. He said, some people, it doesn't matter if you agree with them 90%. That doesn't matter. If you don't agree with them 100%, you're just, you're kind of evil, and you're the enemy and whatever. And I hate that it's that way. I think sometimes it's okay if we agree 90% or 50% or whatever. It's all right.
That's really a good point. And that also, I think, speaks to the basic tenet or principle of free agency, right?
Exactly. We all have to make our own choices and be able to live with our own choices. And life will throw lots of choices on you. And and you have to, and on the other end of that, I think you really have to take responsibility for your choices. You can't, it can't always be somebody else's fault.
And that's what we're helping our kids through, right?
Yeah. There's been several issues on the council where I've gone home and been like, kids, let's just remember personal responsibility. It's a thing. Please don't be an adult who everything is somebody else's fault. That's not the way to live your life.
And it's okay to make mistakes too.
Oh, yeah. Because seriously.
Count on it.
Well, and seriously, you'll make the best, you'll weigh your options and you'll do your research and you'll really think about it forever and you make a decision and then you look back and think, nope, that was wrong. And maybe new information comes about or something happens that you had no way of knowing, or maybe you just made a junky decision no matter how hard you tried. That's life. And we don't cut each other slack like we should. We really, really don't. I remember, I can't even remember what project it was, but they went to build something and they dug up and they found some lines that we didn't know were there. And was it the police? It was a long time ago. I can't even remember what it was. And, we told you shouldn't have built there and da-da-da. And it was how are you supposed to know? How are you supposed to know? I think we've just got to, we're all in this together. We're all trying to do the best we can. I think you just have to say, yeah, man, try as you might, things end up badly. So,
and I try to think about that too. It's so many people want to push back so much of the time. And then when you actually think of what we can accomplish when we work together, even as you said, you don't disagree, but it's let's set this aside and let's work on what we have in common.
And figure out what we do agree on. Yeah, and it's very polarized right now. And some people, that may be exactly how they think it should be, right? We've got to stick to our guns. But I remember a time where they'd put a bunch of people that disagreed in a room and come out with something. And that was kind of nice too. Compromises were made. You couldn't stick to your guns quite as much. You had to concede on some things, but things did get done. And so maybe that's the way to go.
Well, speaking of the way to go, I guess we're coming
done.
Up on.
I do want to let people know that the new city council members, Councilwoman Lostra, and then of course Claire is returning, but that's on January 6th at 12:30. They're going to be the swearing in, and also for those of you hoping for Snow Bowl lessons up at the Snow Bowl, they're hoping to start that January 11th tentatively. So watch that website. I wanted to make sure people knew those two things.
Oh, good. You said January 11th tentative Snow Bowl opening.
Uh-huh.
There's so many things we could. But this may be your last radio show, Mandy. You've got other stuff to do. You're going to be finishing up your work on the council. The swearing in is right around the corner for Marissa Lostra.
It is, yeah.
And as you said, Claire Morris. But just again, thank you, Mandy. 12 years is a long time. You have done such a great job for the city.
Well,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks to your family for their wonderful support of you throughout this entire adventure.
Oh, yeah. They're great.
Yeah.
They're good.
Yeah, Mason's a lucky guy.
Well, let's tell him all that. Everybody listening, make sure Mason knows he is an extremely lucky man.
Thank you. Mandy Simons, Elko City Vice Mayor, our councilwoman, and this is her final radio show as she is exiting the council, and her last meeting will be next Tuesday.
Yep, next Tuesday.
All
4
right.
p.m.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us for Elko Live today. We appreciate your listening, and we appreciate the opportunity to bring you this news